Okay. It is 4:30 on Thursday, September 25th, 2025, and I call this meeting of the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission to order. Roll call. Blaine Johnston's here. Heather Giacomo.
Here.
Patrick Giddings. Ken Freeze.
Here.
Deborah Pitts. Adoption of the agenda.
And I second that.
Motion by Commissioner Giddings, seconded by Commissioner Freeze for adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approval of our minutes from our August 28th meeting.
And I second that.
Motion by Commissioner Giddings, seconded by Commissioner Freeze for adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On to new business. Section 106 review, request to comment regarding adverse effect to Lemp Canal. The application came through earlier this year. It's on a development out at Black Cat and McMillan. And I went and took a look, some pictures, just an older home, some old silos, nothing really worth documenting. But they are going to do some work on the canal, which means that the Section 106 review is required by the federal government and the Corps of Engineers. And in the packet, there was some information on the canals, but we're going to have a meeting, Zoom meeting on September 30th at 1 o'clock with the Corps. And I believe the developer, Ms. Schiffler, and myself will be on that to discuss what's going to go on. First meeting, so there's probably not going to be much of outcome on that. Probably similar to what happened on the Western States Equipment site app on Overland. So we're getting to this a little bit earlier. I think we did that one. So that one, they had already started work before that meeting. This one, they haven't done anything yet. So that's all I know at this time. Any questions?
Is there any structures involved? Just the canal?
Just the canal. Idaho Power transmission line that's there. I don't think it's going to be bothered with that. Just an older home, an old pole barn isn't much of anything. And then an old silo, but it's pretty worn down. So I took pictures earlier. I don't remember if I sent them to Ms. Schiffler. I'll find them and get them to her. So, but that's all I got. Any other questions? All right. With that, we'll go on to item 3, forming a new subcommittee to document and share Meridian's recent history through social media or other outreach. This came about after our last interviews with new commissioners. We had quite a few people, applicants that we talked to that are interested in history that we did not select to be on the commission. However, the mayor has expressed interest that maybe we could use 1 or 2 of these people in a little subcommittee role. Mr. Nair, I have a question for you. In a subcommittee, if they are not meeting to make decisions as far as, I guess, policy for the HPC, but they're just looking at content or social media or other thing, does that meeting need to be noticed?
Yes.
Does? Okay.
So subcommittees that are formed by this commission, Mr. Chair, have the same requirements of public meeting laws that this commission does.
Okay.
So it means they have to be noticed, there has to be an agenda, there has to be minutes taken. So it can be a little cumbersome
Okay.
to do what, if that's a desire. I mean, again, if a group of folks want to meet and do whatever they want to do, they can certainly do that. But if
Okay.
they want to do it at the direction of this commission or to carry out some direction from this commission, yeah, it's going to be the same as any other public meeting.
Okay.
So there are ways you could do it without it being too burdensome on staff. Like, for example, if the commission wants to do that and say, one way you consider is, say, a commissioner wanted to be the lead of that. So say Commissioner Giddings said, I'll take the lead with this one. And he wants to make sure, and if he wants to help check with us on, here's the agenda, that still has to get published through the clerk's office. We can help facilitate that getting, published by them.
Okay.
But they could create an agenda they have to then keep summary minutes, which just are, can be very cursory, but you have to keep minutes. You have to have an agenda, you have to meet at a certain time, just like all public meetings. So there are some rules, but one way to do that to make it less cumbersome, or at least more work for everybody, is if a commissioner is going to be a part of that, I'd be more hesitant to have a committee do that all independently on their own, just because they wouldn't really know what to do and nobody would help guide them. But, I could certainly help work with the commissioner to say, here's all you need to do. Here's what you need to do that. And then when it's done, simply, give that back to us and we can get it down, get it forwarded to the clerk so it gets uploaded to the city website.
Okay.
This,
Do it without adding more work on
Right.
it.
And I don't want to add more work, but I know
Sure.
this is what the mayor requested. So
Yeah.
just looking at what we can do to facilitate. what-
Yeah, so I mean, that's a way to do it. I understand what the mayor's wanting to do is, I'm thinking, and I don't know if you and I are in the same wavelength on this, but on that recent conversation you had with the council, I know some of the longer term things may need some committee work
Mhm.
to do some of that, and that's a way to do it, and that may be partly what the mayor was thinking too. But so it can be done. I was just trying to find a way to make it most easy for the folks that are gonna be there anyway. It wouldn't have to be here, it wouldn't have to be, on the dais and broadcast on YouTube. It doesn't have to be done that way.
Okay.
So we don't have to do
As
that.
long as the meeting's noticed, does the location have to be noticed?
Yes.
Okay.
So location, date, time, all of those things have to be noticed, because technically they're all going to be special meetings. So they're going to have to be noticed every time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Excuse me.
go ahead.
Would it be feasible if they just formed their own, citizens of Meridian who enjoy history, and then they presented to us things that they were thinking about doing?
I don't know. This is new territory for us. So I don't know.
And I've got a question.
Go ahead.
So we're strictly talking about a few individuals who would post things in social media and that, I think, Facebook, maybe Instagram, about history of Idaho, history of Meridian, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, and to make sure we touch all the bases, my suggestion might be that we get this group, and on a quarterly basis, they perhaps meet with us in here, and they would give us their thoughts of what they were going to do for the next quarter. We're going to promote this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We talk about it, give our stamp of approval, and they go on for the next 3 months, so then they meet with us again. Would that sort of fulfill the requirements?
Sorry, Commissioner Cruz, I missed the first part of that.
That what we'd have is this group of people
Hmm.
to fulfill the requirements of having a public meeting. We do it on a quarterly basis in here with one of our meetings. where they would
Okay.
Come in, so it would be in our agenda that they would be coming in, and then we'd talk briefly. They would present us with what they are looking at doing for the next quarter. We could say, yeah, that's a great idea, or no, maybe not, or maybe that might, and then we come up with a plan for that quarter. Then they go out, do their social media stuff for that quarter, then the next quarter they come back with another plan.
Okay, so yeah, so that's still a committee of this commission.
Right.
So they then, when they meet, they have to have an agenda.
They would meet here.
No, when they meet together for them to do whatever they're doing, they have to have an agenda. They have to have a meeting.
Still
They
gonna-
have to have notice.
Oh,
They have to do all of that. So that's what I'm saying is I totally understand where the mayor's coming from, and I'm
Right.
trying to find a path to get there. But to follow the public meeting laws, you have to really be, I wouldn't say rigid, but you have to be pretty organized to do that. That's why we do it this way for commissions, because it's pretty methodical on how we do it. We have partly the reason, like in our code, we don't have to notice every meeting the same way, because we have it in our code when we're meeting. So we do have to post an agenda, which we do, but we don't have to actually notice that we're actually meeting, because these are going to be sort of ad hoc meetings. So they then have to notice every time, which means they have to meet the time period to meet that requirement as well. So there's a little bit more organization that has to be done to do that. So again, I mean, like Commissioner Giacomo just said, I mean, if these folks want to meet on their own, they can do whatever they want. But if they're going to be a subset of this committee or this commission with some direction from this commission, well, we'd like you to talk about this, or we'd like you to work on this subject matter or this area. Well, then they're essentially a directive of this group. And if they're a directive of this group, then they have to meet those requirements. So that's, you know, again, I'm not saying we can't do it and we could probably find a path, but it's going to require some additional effort.
Okay.
Here's
lift.
another idea. If
Okay.
they're private individuals and during we have a time where where members of the public can come in and address us if there's something they want to talk about.
Sure.
And they could come in and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this the next couple of months. What do you think about it?
Mhm.
And we could say, hey, that's a great idea. And why don't you add this to it too?
Mhm.
That would be legal.
I guess my concern is because the social media content is gonna have to go through Ms. Schiffler.
It
She's gonna
still
have,
goes through,
she's
right.
gonna have to
right.
post, so they're still basically working for us.
Correct.
Even though they're doing it on their own, they're still working for us. So I think that's where the open meeting law, they
Correct.
come into play.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a little cumbersome with, I guess what I think we probably need to do is figure out what can we do to make the most useful time, because I agree with what Commissioner Freeze just said. If people want to meet and have a conversation, do whatever they want, they can do whatever they want to. And they can come tell you, and you can say, I like it, or I don't like it, or, hey, we'd love it if you talked about this more, and do whatever you want to do. But what happens, and my experience has been, is they tend to lose interest because they don't feel very connected.
Mhm.
They don't feel like they're a part of accomplishing something. They just feel like, well, we're doing our own thing and do it if you want or don't. And that doesn't ever, may not get a result very well. So maybe what we could do, and maybe the chair and I could meet, we could try to figure out, is there a path we could make these folks' time useful to then be of value to this commission, to then get some result that might help move some of the commission's desires or initiatives forward without it being too cumbersome. But again, it will likely take one of the commissioners to at least be the lead to say, look, I'll at least make sure the agenda gets done. I'll make sure it gets sent to the right people so that it can get published properly. I'll keep the minutes. We'll meet, we'll find a time where we can meet to make sure we can notice it properly and all that stuff. I mean, again, a little logistics is going to take some effort. We can help facilitate some of that.
Mr. Giddings.
Meridian Library District. And what if we could work with the library district on this very item? The library district has our history center. The library district has, apparently the basement of this building is full of artifacts. So could we work in collaboration with the library and try and accomplish this specific goal? Maybe the library could have a subcommittee of people who could meet that wouldn't be subject to the same rules, and we could collaborate with them.
Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Giddings, yes and no. Yet they would be subject to the same rules. We just wouldn't be responsible for them. They would. So the library district would be responsible to make sure they met those requirements.
Oh,
We wouldn't. So that's up to them if they want to. If they would like to do that, I don't know. We haven't asked them. So I mean, that's certainly a path.
well, it's one of the things that I've had on my mind for a long time, that the library district has a lot of these resources. And if we were going to do something like this, one of the things that I would say that we would need to do is we would need to have some kind of a subject matter expert. Now, if that's somebody at the city, that's fine. But social media is it is a job and it is a profession unto itself. And if you're going to do it well and do it consistently and do it so that it's reliable, then you're going to have subject matter experts, people that know what they're doing, people that are committed to it. And I'm not sure that any of us on this commission have that background or have that level of knowledge.
Well, and one of the applicants actually works for the library district. He's been doing all the digitizing
Oh,
of our stuff for the library district. So he's a contact, or they're a contact for that reason, whether they do this or they can do part of it, we can do part of it. I don't know. So I think for right now, Mr. Neri, I'll reach out to you, so we can't get together sometime next week.
Okay.
To start discussions on this. It's probably gonna be a while before we get together, but we need to start the discussion on and how we can move forward.
Okay.
So,
That sounds great.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like a great opportunity. I hate to miss it because of bureaucracy.
right, I agree, but we live in a world of bureaucracy.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, I do have one comment. Commissioner Giddings, since you grew up here and the mayor suggested recent history. Once we get situated, we know what we're going to be doing. I'm going to ask your help for some content on recent history of Meridian. Now, I don't know how far back we want to go.
right. What does that mean?
Yeah, because one of the comments or questions the mayor asked of all the applicants is, when does your history start? Some people thought, well, 100 years ago. Other people thought 50 years ago, but recent history could be an hour ago.
Right. When I read this, I read as in history from, I don't know, the 1980s on.
Yeah,
And when you read, maybe it's a different number,
Right.
right? And so that would be one of the things that would have to be defined is
Okay.
what is recent history? Is the
right.
1960s recent history? Well, my grandkids wouldn't say that. They'd say that was ancient history.
True. So, okay, so tell you what, we're gonna do, Mr. I will get with you, set up a meeting next week sometime to further discuss it. And then, we will just continue this conversation, next month and see what we can go forward with. Any other questions or comments on that? Hearing none, we'll go on to old business. Historic walking tours. Commissioner Freeze, let us know what happened.
I was actually a little concerned because of there was no farmer's market. And I'm sitting out there kind of all by myself, and one by one, people showed up. And before long, we had 14 people. And we walked, went over to the school, got a great talk over there from the ladies, and continued. We were at the school for longer than I had expected we'd be there, but so the total time was about an hour and a half by the time we got back here. But it went really well. The weather was great. I had the challenge coins. One person, when I tried to give her a challenge coin, she said, "Oh no, this is my third time. I don't need another one." She said, "I learned something different every time I go on the tour."
What we want to hear.
Yeah, so it was really good.
Okay. Perfect. Then recap season. I know when I led them or Commissioner Giddings, we always had at least a dozen people every time. So I think we had a good turnout. I think it's worth our efforts to resume the tours next year. I think we can tweak our tour a little bit. I know that the one that Commissioner Giddings did last month, we did not do the school. We went north to begin with. I think everybody liked that tour when Commissioner Giddings led it. But like I tell people, you can take the tour like Commissioner Free said, 3 times with 3 different leaders, and you're gonna get 3 different answers
Mhm.
if you go past the same building.
That's right.
So I applaud everybody for their efforts in doing this with us. Any comments from the commission on how to improve it for next year?
One thing, Mr. Chair, one thing I would suggest is that we advertise it as being an hour and a half tour.
Okay,
I think we had good intentions of making that a 1 hour tour. I'm not sure if we ever actually were able to do the tour in whatever form we were doing it in 1 hour.
true.
I know that I can't shut up long enough to do that in
Yeah.
1 hour, so an hour and a half seems to be a
Well-
reasonable time for what we're doing.
Yeah, and when we got to the intersection of, I think it's Pine and Meridian,
Mhm.
I said, okay, if anybody doesn't, I told them where we were going from here. I said, if you want to, this is a good place to break off and you can go. Nobody broke off, but I gave them that opportunity at that point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. I think if we let people know it's gonna be an hour and a half, especially in the summer, to bring water and bring some shade stuff.
Right.
Everybody hung in there and walked with us, so I think it's a
Mhm.
good suggestion, so. Do we want to start the tours early in the year than what we did this year? Do we want to go later in the year?
See, we're doing it May to September, right?
April to September?
Oh, April to September. I don't know that we would want to do it any earlier. March is usually kind of a wet month.
True.
I think, did I do the April one? Anyway, the one I did, it was pouring rain
Right.
outside, so
That was in April?
can't remember if it was
Okay.
April or May.
I do believe it was the April.
Was it
one.
April?
was
Yeah,
rain.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Can be a
pouring
little
rain.
early.
Yeah.
It was still fun, but it was pouring rain for part of the time.
Was the May one, here's all the numbers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think any earlier. I mean, you're already in April risking weather,
Yeah.
iffy weather.
I would say that it would be possible we could try for an October one, October is I mean, I'm still mowing my lawn in
Yeah.
October, so.
I guess we'll just play by ear.
Yeah.
And if people are interested and if we look at the extended forecast, when we get to that time, if we want to try and pull one off, I think just pull one off.
Mhm.
One of the things, Mr. Chair, I think we could do, and this would be a planning item, would be to see if there are specific groups in Meridian that we could reach out to. Does West Ada School District have history clubs that might be interested and might get some extra credit if they went on a walking tour? Or I don't remember when it was quite a while ago, but we had a Girl Scout troop that joined us.
Okay.
And that was pretty good. And there's probably Boy Scout troops and
Mhm.
there's Girl Scout troops and there's, we could reach out specifically to somebody like Meridian Chamber of Commerce and see if some of their members would like to come and join. I just think there's ways of outreach that we could get the word out there.
Well, there's, I mean, depending on the day, I got a kind of a full schedule, but I'd be generally available during the week to do it like to school, because I think it's third grade.
Mhm.
They study local history, and there's nothing more local than taking a tour downtown.
Right.
I guess,
And it could be specifically tailored for the audience that we're giving the tour to.
right.
I think that's probably a good suggestion. We can reach out to the school district and say, because schools are gonna have to be during the week and probably during the day.
Mhm.
But if they're interested in doing that, we can set up a time that one of us could probably be down to lead that tour.
Yeah. I'm doing something tomorrow at one of the schools, the Pioneer Days,
Oh,
where they have different stations, and I'm working at one of the stations where we're showing them how the old timers pan for gold.
nice.
So,
Yeah, let's reach out. Beginning of the year, we'll start talking to some of these different groups, give them our schedules, or if they have a specific time that they would like to try and do something, see if we can come.
the teachers, retired teachers at the school said they used to have a lot of school tours. It stopped at COVID, and it hasn't restarted because they don't have the money for transportation. So that might be a problem also with getting kids down here, is the transportation issue. I mean, there's a couple schools that are close by, but some of the outer schools.
That's right.
Yeah, I know that money's tight and they have to budget for
Yeah.
school buses and stuff like that, but
We can offer, see
yeah,
what
we
happens.
can offer to the school district and say, we're available if you guys can find a way to get kids
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah,
Logistically, maybe iffy, we may need a couple of commissioners because they have a big group of kids. To try and lead a bunch of kids, we may have to break it up into two groups or
Right.
something, but if they have, we'll accommodate.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Good suggestions. We'll go on to project updates, potential National Historic Register nomination for Zamzow's Mill. I still not have heard back from the Zamzow's family. I keep reaching out and I'll just keep bugging them until they give us an answer. Commissioner Freeze, elongated coin machine.
I have estimates here for what the cost is that they said they will honor through January 1st, 2026.
Okay.
My next question is, what do you want me to do with them? Who can I give them to?
Give it to Ms. Schiffler.
Okay,
And then I'll get with her. I'll reach out to Mr. Everts, see if he's still interested
okay.
in doing it. And then does it
Sure.
give like lead time, stuff like that? How long would it take to get one in?
Couple of weeks.
Okay,
Let me give you a copy because I brought more than one copy and I'll give one to Schiffler.
okay. Could you reach out to them, just double check what the lead time would be
Okay.
for us?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'll tell you, one of the longest lead time is going to be for us to come up with the designs for the dies. But once we do that, then it'll happen pretty quickly. But I mean, that could be, I mean, we're going to sit here and decide, okay, we've got 4 blanks. What do we want on them? So that'll probably be the bigger delays unless we want to, I mean, have some in our pocket right now that we could discuss. And that would, when this happens, when we say, okay, great, we've got these 4 things we want to put on there.
My first thought would be Zamzow's Mill.
Of course, yep, that's my first
Um,
one.
Beyond that,
What about the racetrack?
we'll probably do the racetrack.
The, what do they call it? Woodsman Building.
Modern Woodsman.
Yeah.
That is a pretty iconic
Yeah.
building. I've seen that on banners and signs around Meridian before.
Mm-hmm. And one more, and what I can prep this stuff and have it. So if somebody says, let's go, we'll have it ready to go.
I guess my last suggestion would be the old creamery that you said on this site.
Okay. Okay, got it. I'll look for some suitable photos and have something sort of in the pipe so that when somebody says, yeah, let's do it, there won't be any delays then, at least on our part.
Well, Mr. Chairman, pardon me for interrupting. I guess I'm a little concerned. We can't just take photos from somewhere
Right.
because of copyrights that are owned by somebody else.
Right.
So that's problematic. I was going to ask, who's designing these? Who's going to own these prints? Who's going to own these representations? You know, when we did the coins, the city paid for those.
Mhm.
We own that image.
Right.
So someone has to create it, and the creator owns it unless they sell it. So then we would need an agreement with somebody to do that, if the city's gonna own these machines.
Mhm.
I know we've talked about Mr. Everts, maybe him purchasing a machine or him owning the machines, the city not being the owners, which is fine, and that's up to them if he wants to do it that way, that's fine.
Okay.
But that's the only thing. It's not quite as easy as just simply saying, let's pick the design, let's pick 4 locations and
Okay.
get some pictures. We can't just do that. We're gonna have to figure out legally, how are we gonna do that?
Okay.
If the city is gonna be the owner of it. If the city isn't the owner and it's somebody else, and all this commission's role is helping facilitate that, or helping to facilitate how these are gonna get done or used or located or whatever, that's fine. That's different. But if we're gonna be the owners of it and own the images and create the dies and create all of that, then we're gonna have to have some agreements done and something else done to make that all legal. So
Okay.
that might take a little while.
Okay.
Just some food for thought.
Food for thought.
Mr. Chair, we could roll this into some kind of an art competition with the schools about, so you're saying, Mr. Neary, that if someone's drawing these, then they own their drawing, but then we could transform that drawing into the image for the coin.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Commissioner Giacomo, what we would likely do in that scenario, and we've done it with others, and probably Ms. Schiffer knows more about this than I do, but if we're going to essentially have them submit it for this purpose, for this, then we would create an agreement. And in this agreement, we'd say, you're going to give this to us, we're going to own it, and you're not going to own it anymore. Once you give it to us, you're giving up your copyright and ownership of that. And again, Ms. Schiffer is an artist. She probably knows more about this than I do, but that would be what I would anticipate. We would do something in that vein. No different than if we commission someone to create the image for us. Same thing, we create an agreement, they're going to sell it to us or give it to us, however they want to transfer the ownership. We just need something clear that we have an ownership right to use it, recreate it, distribute it, and all of that. Am I on track, Ms. Schiffer?
So in my understanding of how they work with the dies, I think the company will actually, if you give them an image, they'll create the artwork or the graphic for it.
Okay.
Is that, Commissioner Freeze, was
Right,
that your
right.
understanding?
Yeah, I've been involved with developing at least 2 of these. And we've sent them just about camera-ready artwork because I was able to create it. But on the other hand, we sent them one time what I would call a very crude drawing, and they did some beautiful dies. So if we send them a picture, it's basically line art that they're going to, anything that we send them is going to end up as line art.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I just want to make sure it's clear on where the origin and owner of it is. That's really my only concern, is somebody back later saying, that's my picture, I never authorized you to use it. And therefore they can't create a die from it because I didn't permit that. So that's the only line and clarity I want to make sure we have.
If it's a photo that someone from the commission takes,
Then I think we'd be fine.
yeah, I would take them.
do we need permission from the owner, like from Zamzos to use their mill or,
No.
okay, as long as it's a photograph that we take.
Yeah, if it's just taken from a public place, I think it's fine.
So the only one that would probably have to worry about would be the creamery.
Creamery, yeah,
Because there's no, we can't go take a photograph of it. We'd have to pull one from somewhere
Right.
to get it.
the library has archives, right?
But someone still owns that photograph. I don't think it's library district, but I don't know.
I don't know if we could, I mean, there may be publicly available ones, I don't know.
Okay,
You know, Mr. Chair, we should ask the company. They deal with this every day in their normal business. Just ask them, get their advice. They're experts on it.
Do that.
if you reach out to them and then let us know.
I know the ones that we've done for the club, we own them. We own the die. We
Yeah.
can do whatever we want with them. So,
Yeah, I think right now we just have to figure out, if we take the photos, we're fine. But if, like I said, I would like the creamery since that's a big part of our history. If we can find one of public domain, we're in good shape. So,
I'll look into that.
okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other discussions on the elongated coin? Hearing none. Review and discuss 9/9/25 presentation to council on historic preservation goals, objectives, and strategies. Ms. Schiffler, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I hope everyone had a chance to watch. I sent it through an email, the video of the presentation that I gave to City Council on the 9th about the proposed goals, objectives, strategies. I would sort of say that the reception from council was cautiously interested. I definitely heard from multiple council members that they want the Historic Preservation Commission to remain a non-regulatory body. That part was pretty clear, but they are interested in more information and looking for maybe some more research and clearer goals on what some of those things would look like. And I think there was enough directive given that I'm going to engage the planning department on looking at some of the options for those.
Yeah, I was at the meeting also. Yeah, cautiously optimistic is probably a good way to put it. So we still have some work to do. I want to, or we need to reach out to MDC and talk to them about their Destination Downtown program, see if there's anything that we can do to help them or what they can do to help us out. So that's on a list of things. So I will get with Ms. Schiffler, going to get some contact information from MDC so we can talk to them. Any questions on the presentation to council? Any further discussion? Okay, we will go on to item 7, review and discuss draft Meridian Historic Preservation Plan. Jerry, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman Johnston, members of the commission, Mr. Neri, Ms. Schiffler. I hope you have had a chance to review this working draft dated September 17. I think some of the items that you've discussed already this evening are pertinent, particularly as it relates to the goals, objectives, and strategies. You'll note that the version that's in this document is the version that the City Council had before them. I think it's the version that Mr. Freeze and I shared at the farmer's market. So it's dated a bit and needs some work. Also, to reflect the concerns that you heard by the council and so forth. Also, you'll notice that in that final chapter, there's a spot for a prioritizing of the strategies. And so we would need to do that, you know, assign them. We had a discussion, I believe, sort of off the cuff as we went over an older version of goals, objectives, and strategies. So I was hoping that that is something that you could do as homework, if you will, following this meeting, unless you're feeling up to it and want to try and revise and assign priorities at the same time this evening. But I had hoped to flip through the document with you and just kind of highlight some of the things that I know either could be improved or that you might have more information or a slightly different perspective. And I thought that if we just kind of went through those together, it shouldn't take us, shouldn't take us too long, but I'd say the next 10, 15 minutes, we could just walk through here and I can take notes and you can take notes. In anticipation of that, I will say that the next steps in this process is Cassandra and I reviewed the scope. The next step is for us to receive, meaning the consultant, to receive edits from you. So ideally consolidated by staff and provided to me. That draft could go either way. We could put it on the preservation plan website and have the public and the SHPO review it at the same time and take whatever comments we get from the public and the SHPO and then go from that draft to a revised draft that you see at your meeting and then you later take to City Council. Or if you feel like, gee, SHPO might have some real doozies in terms of edits, and rather than sharing it with the public, why don't we send this through to SHPO, make any corrections they want, then post it on for the public for a few weeks before you have an actual meeting here. That meeting is scoped for us to come and participate in it. We're calling it Public Outreach Event number 3. So that's technically our last real task because the formatting, the adoption process, all of that is something that the city was going to take on. So that's how I see this rolling out. And it's just a matter of how quickly you can get me edits, how much time you want to give to the SHPO. They have in the past asked for 30 days. We had the Weiser plan go through and they reviewed it within a couple of weeks. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, I know you haven't always had that experience with your document reviews. So that would be the reason to combine the two, the public and the SHPO is that it would be, you'd save a little time, but it might not be worth doing.
Go ahead and let's go through it and then I'll.
Okay.
I'll think.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so those are the big pieces in terms of the process and where we are in the process. Just looking first at page 2, which is the table of contents. We need to do some work here depending on how we decide to change the organization. I will note for you that I endeavored to use the table of contents or the outline that you provided to me with our scope, and that I modified for my response. But I would say things just didn't flow quite the way we all thought they would. So if you feel like there is something that's out of place or needs to be emphasized, now is definitely the time to bring that to our attention. I will say in reviewing that outline, the one piece that was missing is that we do not talk about funding sources. Frankly, there aren't very many funding sources. I do mention federal tax credits under the National Park Service, and I do mention the grants that the Heritage Trust offers. But in the context of the functions of those groups, not as a list, a guide, but we could do that. I would have, except I couldn't really find a place to put it. So I'd love for you to think that through. Otherwise, yes, that is the table of contents. The appendices, all of them are done. Some of them are in this document. The only one that is really has not been compiled is the public involvement summary. The public survey results you've seen, that summary document, it just is a PDF, so it wasn't easy to put it in this Word document. Laws and regulations is in here. A list of historic surveys is in here. And the city code and plan review, which you've seen before, is in this document. Acronyms used, those could be reviewed. Page 4, the acknowledgements, these could be reviewed. Frequently we have poor spelling, we omit someone, so please feel free to edit this. I believe this is the current National Park Service SHPO required wording. Then we go into our first chapter, which is introduction. You'll note that the pictures are spare in this document. We were hoping that when you go to do your, formatting, you can put more graphics in. That's kind of the way our contract is written. That's on you all to do. So this, as we talked about in the beginning, includes the importance of historic preservation. We summarize some materials that were in the 2014 plan. We use some materials from Don Ripkema on economic value, really, of historic preservation. And then we describe the historic preservation plan and the historic preservation plan process. You'll recognize these dates. We refer to appendices for more information on page 7. The end of page 7 is kind of hanging out there a little bit because we don't know how the process is going to end. I'm not sure how you wanted to characterize the city council workshop or whether that was even necessary to characterize. We don't talk about it really. I don't talk about the conclusions of that workshop, but we put it in there anyway. It might be worth, I think it's kind of interesting, but that's that. And then page 8 is a summary of the SWOT analysis. Thanks to Ms. Schiffler for putting that together as a slide in her presentation to City Council. I thought that was the best way to, since we all went through it, to summarize it. It seemed like a nice snapshot. There will be the SWOT analysis will appear in the public involvement summary. So there'll be more, but this gives a nice one-pager. But if you feel like it's too complicated or not suitable, we can certainly pull it. So preservation programs and regulations, I think we had a different title for this in our original outline. But this seemed to be the simplest way to present it. Again, we borrowed from the document that we are updating, which is the 2014 Historic Preservation Plan. We updated things wherever possible. The last paragraph refers to the laws that apply, and that is, we send them on to, send the reader on to Appendix C, where they're listed in detail. The following 2 pages discuss the various entities that form the preservation network, and the governmental agencies is the first page. We identify the Ada County CLG because they're kind of your cousin in this area. I reference that both the Idaho SHPO and the Ada County CLG have new historic preservation plans because that's kind of how you tie in with one another. If you look at the National Park Service, you'll see I mentioned the federal historic tax credits there. I don't describe them, but I do say that's a function of the Park Service and ultimately the SHPO. Nonprofit organizations, the National Trust is at the national level. Preservation Idaho is the statewide version. And then the Idaho Heritage Trust, which is a granting entity. So I mentioned their grants on page 12 at the bottom there. And I leave it at that. Then we break into Meridian history and historic properties. So with the exception of, on page 14, the section identified as Indigenous history in Southern Idaho, the rest of the material related to history comes from the 2014 plan. And we did a little, very light editing of most of it. And then if you get to page 17, I was interested to hear your conversation about what is contemporary or modern history. So we made a break at 1950 for modern Meridian, which is fairly common to go post-World War II as considered modern. So we tried to lean into some of the information of Julius M. Kleiner ultimately becoming a very contemporary part of Meridian, kind of getting that out there. The same with the Meridian Speedway, mentioning it in its recent designation on in the National Register. And then we mentioned Interstate 84, which is 1966. It wasn't until the late 70s and 80s that really the city of Meridian got close, but certainly that became a target to get people off the freeway into the city and affected land uses along that corridor. We don't really talk about going south of the interstate, which is its own thing and could be discussed if you're going to write or try and endeavor to write contemporary history. I think that would be an important milestone. Yeah, and so we talk in the top of 18 a little bit of the city's growth and the loss of farmland and the increase in employment centers, and refer to your population growth, and then try and end it on kind of a happy note for historic buildings. I don't know if that may be too ambitious in terms of a happy note right before the historic property section, but I would love it if you would edit these sections. And if you feel like there are other milestones, to answer your earlier question about what is the year that contemporary starts, I use as a rule of thumb the 50-year rule, which would put us at 1975. But this plan is good for 10 years, presumably. So 85 is kind of what we put as a stopping point for our highlighting of new development. I didn't do any big research into that, but I was thinking, well, would Eagle Road have been, Wahoo's, some of these things, and they didn't quite meet the 85 rule. But I would say that if you are looking for things that are recent history so that you'll be on top of it the next time you write one of these plans, I would 85 to, 2005 or something as your, or unless you've really constructed something that's, is going to endure. For example, in the Nampa plan, we talked about the Ford Idaho Center, just a big public investment, even though it was absolutely not within the 40-year rule. So that's just going a little bit off topic, but just to let you know, we've been grappling with this very question because we wanted to make your history, make up for the 10, 11 years since the last plan was written. So the historic properties section refers to your properties that are in the National Register. And then if you look at the figure, the historic resources map that follows, and this would ideally be on an 11 by 17, we can zoom in and out on your digital version. But this is from the Idaho Cultural Resource Inventory Survey that the Historical Society maintains. And it'll be a snapshot. Of course, they update this all the time, but these are properties that have been surveyed for one reason or another and have either been not reviewed for eligibility, or they have been reviewed and been determined to be either non-eligible, eligible, or listed in the National Register. So there's quite a bit of information here. There's also quite a bit of information on ICRIS generally, but we tried to keep it simple. And Table 3 depicts the NRHP eligible properties, and those are the blue dots on the map. We have addresses, we have years. In some instances, there'll be on ICRIS, if they were noted, they will note the architectural style, but that's not a common, not all survey forms have that information. So this seemed to be the most consistent. And if you were going to look on ICRIS, having the IHSI number is important. So we didn't want to take that off of there. I don't know how to make this table look better, but here it is. Anyway, there might be things on there. You catch misspellings. You might catch some inconsistencies, ways to make this more useful or helpful. We could also sort them by year. We could sort them differently. I will also note that though we didn't really talk about this in our outline, we don't have any kind of description of architectural styles that are common in your community. We could have something like that. That isn't really something that was in your 2014 report. There is something like it in the Ada County Preservation Plan. I don't know how important that is, but if you feel like you want to add something or refer to something like that, we can certainly do that. All right, and then this is the part that's all about you, the Meridian Historic Preservation Commission. So we summarize information regarding who you are and why you are from the city code and from the Idaho code. We provide a timeline of historic preservation efforts started by the 2014 plan. I think I removed a few things because they weren't your achievements, whether they were relevant or not. So I kind of switched around just a tiny bit. The Idaho Heritage City Award is a mystery to us. We cannot find information about it. So
I've heard of it.
yeah, it was on our outline of things to cover, and we've Googled it and tried our very best. But if anybody has, we put 2014 as the date because it was referred to in their plan, but they didn't provide there's no detail. So if you would like us to include it in here, 2014 is a bogus date. That's just for us to know that that's where it came from. That's where we heard of it in the 2014 plan. Then we go into a description of your programs. This is, pretty much comes from all of you and in the conversations we've had and the materials we put together early in this process. I would love for you to take a close look at this, and if we've missed anything or if there's more details you'd like us to provide, we certainly can. We took the liberty of adding the Eggers Farmstead silo discussion at the bottom of the page. I'm not sure I've got the most current information, so that's the note, the TBD of where we are with that. We also, I believe this was in our scope to discuss the National Register District Survey. So I'm on page 25. Not knowing where that's going right now, it's still a fairly current piece of news. You guys just did that. It's just been within the past couple of years. The studies and surveys and other city programs are provided in Appendix E. So there are maps of those two National Register proposed or potential districts. I did not put them in here because I think there might still be some conversation about what those boundaries are. And so again, if you feel like this doesn't do it justice or it's too much information, it doesn't have to be in here. Same with the local landmarking process. I tried to summarize the work that we did last year without getting going overboard. I did mention if we are considering some of the conversations that came up at the city council meeting, I did think it was important to put on the record that you do have an informal process that you've been working with, where the planning department has a map of where your historic properties are and you are notified of them, and then you go out and take a look. A history check, I think we're calling it. So if you're uncomfortable with that language, or there's anything about this that isn't quite what you were hoping, then please whack away at it. So this is the title of the chapter. This I know is exactly what was in our scope, the goals, objectives, strategies for future efforts. Page 27 describes basically what this includes. The letters A, B, C, and D are the goals restated. You'll see them here in a little bit. We took a few of the high points of the survey to highlight some of the things that were driving the objectives and the goals. Those are in the bullets near the bottom of the page. And then we describe the action items or strategies, and then we send them on to the next 4 or 5 pages. And so these are the ones in blue ink. This is exactly what was in our last version. So this is what probably needs a hearty scrubbing for some of the items that the council was a little cool on. I would say page 28, goal 1 is very much in your wheelhouse of studying and identifying, and I don't think there was any concern about that. Goal 2 is where we start talking about protecting as well as preserving our historic and cultural resources. So here is perhaps, there are some strategies here that you might want to reconsider or soften in some way. 2.3a, for example, develop a formal process through the planning division for development application review of potential historic sites where development may negatively impact historic features. That's, I think, would be a place for you to look. Goal 3 is the informing and engaging residents. So this is the education and outreach, which I think you really got 2 thumbs up from the city council about your efforts in this realm. So I'm not sure there's much to edit there. And then this one is, the last goal is strengthening the operation and administration of the commission. So this may have some things here that could be tweaked a little bit. They didn't really talk about the way that your commission is administered, but it's true that if you were going to have some kind of involvement in when things are occurring in Old Town, let's say, that's something that the development of the planning division is going to have more insight in than the Parks and Recreation department. So, and as you grow and if you take on other responsibilities, having a liaison from the planning division, either way seems to me to be a good thing to do. But maybe some of these strategies, we keep them in here and they become a low priority, something that we don't anticipate happening for several years. But I would recommend that we not, duck and cover so much that we take out some of the forward thinking activities that we've developed and that the community encouraged us to look at. And to that end, page 32 does talk about how to break up the various strategies or action items. And we've given a couple of years to each one of those timeframes. We don't really talk about partners. We could add a partner column, but most of these are really rest squarely with you to accomplish them. And if we have a partner, we usually say it in the strategy. So that is just kind of an afterthought on my part. Page 33 are the references we used, which are, as you have gathered, we've leaned very heavily on the 2014 plan. We also referred to the current, I think it was a draft version of the Ada County Preservation Plan. I'm not sure they have a final, but they will probably before we're done. And then the rest of this document is the appendices, which I've already indicated to you are in a little bit of a state of flux. The very last one, City Code and Plans Review, this is the one that has the pages out of the National Register summary. It's, we're in Appendix E. And I think that's all. I will stand for questions or comments or edits if you have them.
Any comments or questions for Sherry?
Just a clarification. So it sounds like our next step is for each one of us individually to go through this plan and make our comments or edits or spell check or whatever we're going to do. And then we need to send it to you, right, Cassandra? And then you'll combine everything together. Okay. All right.
Any other comments? I don't have any edits at this time. I know we're asking a lot in this document on what we want to do in the future. I don't know what the future is going to look like as far as council, mayor, how they're going to feel. I don't want to dodge the bullet. I think that some of these things that we put in here are important for us. I hope it doesn't draw a whole lot of heat, but I think it's important for us to keep stuff in there. But yeah, if everybody review this, go through it, make their notes and get them to Ms. Schiffler, that way we can get it forwarded.
And you sent out an email, said October 8th. Didn't you give us a date?
I think it's 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
So.
I just have a comment. I think it's on page 17, the map, page 19, the map, and it shows there's an awful lot of yellow there.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've already lost a lot of history.
Or they're not eligible for
Well, they're
other
not
reasons.
eligible, but that kind of tells me that they're probably new construction. Unnecessarily?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
They could be not eligible just because of age. They may have not met the 50-year criteria yet for this.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look on, if you look in the appendices, kind of midway through the appendices, there's Appendix D, a list of surveys. And that will give you an idea of the types of things, because it's those surveys that yield those forms that yield the designation of being their eligibility. And so the Aegean Estates subdivision number 4, may very well have been a farm field with no extant historic resource, or a resource that was in 1957 home that has been modified 3 times over. So that is kind of most of these surveys are done because someone is receiving some type of federal funding to do something that might affect a cultural resource. So they send out a cultural resource analyst to review. It's not like the TAG study that you all paid for, where you knew they were going to find historic resources that they were going to evaluate. So that's why there are a lot of, just not historic. It doesn't necessarily mean that we lost something there.
Okay.
It might, but it's not necessarily that.
Okay.
And if you get on ICRIS, it is sort of fascinating to, go down that rabbit hole on some of these sites.
I might add to that a little bit. I know there's some sites that have come up and they are historic properties, but maybe they're just not in great condition. And so they're not eligible because they're not in great condition or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, the integrity of them is not what it should be. Even it's a pretty high bar to get on in the National Register. And the way we have so many that are eligible when they're in a district is because it's the fact of the district that it's intact, that that's what makes it significant. Whereas some of these, not every home was owned or built by the founding father, right? Not every building, not every industry is the dairy industry, yeah, it's one reason not to squander your National Register listed properties because it's not easy to get that designation in the first place. So.
I think another good example of that might be the modern Woodman building. I don't think that it's eligible
Mm-mm.
to be on the National Register. And I think that part of our discussions, which go back quite a ways, revolved around having landmarking programs so that we could indeed recognize some of these properties around Meridian.
Properties that are important.
Yeah, local properties that are very, very important to the city of Meridian that are not eligible. And I think there's lots and lots of those. Also, the historic district is another pathway. Having a historic district downtown could encompass some of these buildings that actually aren't eligible, but still could be recognized for their significance in our history.
The destination downtown comment that you made about that progression of that conversation with the city council, it was interesting that they presented before Cassandra did. It was really opportune, actually, because it was like little light bulbs going off about how you all could help to inform how to make the area more authentic and in that vein, I guess there are probably properties that were surveyed of downtown in the 90s or whenever that survey occurred that were not old enough. And if you resurvey, you may find that some of these buildings are eligible for listing in the National Register. But if in the interim, they've made unfortunate changes, then you lost that opportunity. So another reason to go forward a little bit in terms of, maybe you should be looking at the year 2000 because, that building did play a significant role in the development of your community. I guess we could lean a little bit more into your review. If you don't actually conduct design review, that they forward you documents for you to review, or things like the destination downtown. It's as if the council on the spot thought, oh, maybe you guys could review that document. So maybe that would be something that we haven't really addressed in here, or we could maybe, instead of just saying we'll work with the planning division. That's food for thought.
Another goal.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? All right,
Mr.
please
Chair.
review this.
Mr. Chair, I am hoping do we have a plan? Because I think Sherry was looking for us to come up with objectives and actions here. How will we go about entering things in for here?
If when you do your comments, you want to put an H, M, L, and C next to them, it would mean that, Cassandra, you would have to sort them based on that and make your own potentially executive decision if you had and the objective just comes along with the action. If you just put the action in there, do you know what I mean? It's a way to find it back in the objectives. Or it actually could be, instead of the objective, it could be the number, and then the action could be written there. It doesn't really need the objective because they're coded kind of, you know? But yeah, that would be the easiest, I think, unless you want to do it tonight, which seems a little counterproductive since some of these you might get rid of some of the action items.
Let's review it individually, go through this, set our objectives, and then send them to Ms. Schiffler. And we'll just let her, it may not be able by the end of the month, but if we can come up with a list,
Yeah,
then we continue.
you can just type
Yeah.
in an M or an H at the end of each action item. I think that would be the easiest, unless you're going to handwrite stuff and scan it. I don't know how you, but even then you would just handwrite it in there. Don't color code it. Make it easy for her.
So please put H, M, L, or C next to the items, and then I can compile that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably the best way for us to do it.
One other thing that I think is worth mentioning and noting on the list of properties, I think we need to put an asterisk on this property, which is no longer standing.
It's,
And one other thing that I'd like to note, which is coming up, and the commission, the city's working through all of the bylaws for all the commissions, and that's something Bill will be presenting at the next meeting. So we are going to have an update to the commission bylaws, but that's easy enough for me to cut and paste into there.
Okay.
And for the tag survey, we have received comments from SHPO on that. I don't think I've updated you about that. So tag has quite a bit of work to do to update that, but planning on doing that next winter. So still some things in flux.
And you'll give some thought to the preservation incentives, if you want us like a table showing, explaining the federal historic tax credit, the few grants that are out there. We can do that. I'm not sure where to put it. But if you feel like that's worth adding, if you feel like the architectural styles is some kind of discussion is worth adding. I want to be clear that I didn't accomplish. And if you're still, after you do have 40 pages of good stuff, but if you want more, I'm happy to accommodate while we're still in this working phase.
I would say preservation incentives. I'd like the idea of having it in the document. I don't know how many members of the public are going to actually go through this
Mm-hmm.
that would understand it. So yeah, let's think about that one. But I
Okay.
think it'd be nice to have it in there, but I don't know how much good it's going to do for the public. We understand it, but I don't know what the public's going to do with it.
Mm-hmm. It's another reason to be in the National Register is that if you are, or you're National Register eligible, you may be considered for the federal historic tax credit. And
Yes.
if you're not, then you have to have that documented before you can go get the federal historic tax credit. But that, for most modest projects, that's not really going to be a viable alternative anyway. So, okay, well, I appreciate your time this evening and your time in the next couple of weeks and, going through this with a red pen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
With that, does anybody have any future meeting topics or discussions we need to do? If so, let Ms. Schiffler know. Our next meeting is going to be October 23rd, 2025. As it stated, parking may be difficult, so good luck. I will not be here on the 23rd. So Mr. Giddings, you're in charge that night. Right. I don't see a smile.
Mr. Chair, maybe we should discuss this because I'm also going to be on vacation. I'm going to be out of town on the 23rd. So do we have new members coming? As I know we have to have a certain amount of people, Ms. Schiffler, right?
The new members will not be appointed until November 1.
Oh, they'll be here at the end of November or
Yeah.
our December meeting, actually.
Well, maybe we should talk about a different date for this meeting. Because we won't have a quorum.
Yeah.
Could we do it a week earlier? Or should we just adjourn knowing that we need to and do some research into what's possible? Because we either need to find another date or we need to cancel the meeting. And if we don't do the meeting next month, I know typically we change our meeting schedule for November and December because of the
November, December's
holidays.
Combined one.
Mr. Chair. One of the things I think we've done in the past, you couldn't do it the week before because there'd be planning and zoning is scheduled on the 16th currently. There would be nothing on the 30th of October, but you also, if you're going to pick a different day, you don't have to pick the same time either. You're gonna have
Right.
one different time. Or I know in the past, I recall, I think we've done a combined meeting. Do you recall that, Schiffer?
Our November.
We
December
typically do
meeting.
that because the holidays on November and December
Oh, that's
combine
right.
the meeting
That's
for the first week of December.
Yeah.
And maybe since we have new incoming commissioners that don't start until November 1, maybe if we're rescheduling, we could do a meeting after November 1 with the new commissioners.
And then do a combined meeting later in November, early in December, right?
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, right now, if I'm looking at just our normal calendar, November 13th is the second Thursday. I don't think we normally have a scheduled meeting in this room. Those days, the planning.
Is that not a P and Z meeting?
What is it?
When does planning and zoning meet?
First and third Thursdays.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. The 13th potentially may be a possible date. I mean, you could set a tentative date. If for some reason we find out after this meeting that this is already booked for some other purpose, you could either see about either relocating it
There's an arts commission meeting that day.
or, oh, okay.
I definitely cannot do that.
Oh, come on.
I
Pick your battle.
Let me
that is
just
more than fair.
simultaneously run to a commission meeting.
I think that is more than fair. But again, you can also pick a different day. I don't know if that's practical for everybody either after the 1st of November. We do have election day, I think is the 4th. City council will then meet on the 5th. The 11th is a holiday, so this building is closed on the 11th.
The 12th?
Yeah, the 12th works for me.
Mr. Chairman, as
Also,
much
it's
as
going
I'd
to be
love
a
to
city
stay here,
council meeting is in here.
I have
because there's
another
a
meeting I have to
on
go
the
to.
11th. So this room is not available that day. City council is meeting that day on the 12th because of,
Is the conference room open?
could be, I was gonna say the 19th also is don't show right now that the 19th is oh yeah, Parks Commission normally meets on the 12th. So the 19th also right now, I don't show anything on that date.
What about the 17th? What if we start choosing earlier in the week? Monday?
Maybe up to Ms. Schiffer on your schedule. I don't know your schedule. I don't have a conflict. I don't think.
I think I might need to work with the clerk's office and see when we have availability. And since we don't have everyone now, maybe I can I'll have to send out a scheduling request and
Yeah.
see when people are available. But maybe the plan can be to look towards early November for the next meeting.
Yeah, if we don't do early November, if we wind up towards later in the month, then that should just be our combined meeting for November, December. That would mean we'd only meet one more time before the end of the year. So we need to figure out a time. If we're going to meet twice before the end of the year, we need to figure out a time earlier in November to do that. All right.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
My second.
Motion by Commissioner Geating, second by Commissioner Giacomo for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Saying no? None? We're out of here, people. I'm tired.